Millions of people recently looked at their grueling daily subway commute and decided to trade it all for the mountains. Between 2020 and 2026, the United States experienced the largest internal migration in its history. A temporary reaction to a global pandemic hardened into a permanent break in how we live and work. For decades, climbing the corporate ladder required paying the zip code premium. A top-tier salary in tech or finance required workers to physically cram themselves into one of a handful of wildly expensive, highly congested cities. Today, for the first time in American history, your physical location and your economic value are no longer linked. The geographic pay scale has flattened out. Productivity is now measured by the code or copy you create on a screen, rather than the specific desk chair you occupy in a high-rise. This chart shows the dramatic rise of remote work over the last few years. In 2019, about 9 million Americans worked from home. Today, that number has stabilized at over 20 million, representing nearly 30% of all paid workdays in the country. Even when massive corporations demanded their employees return to their desks, the mandates largely failed. 85% of workers now report that location flexibility carries more weight than a competitive salary. We are now seeing senior software engineers pulling in salaries of $171,000 a year while living in cabins hundreds of miles away from the nearest urban center. Top talent simply refuses to take a pay cut for moving to a smaller town. The zip code premium is dead. These fleeing employees carry their high-paying remote roles and their corresponding tax dollars into entirely new markets. This map shows a massive wealth drain out of traditional coastal hubs. In a single year, California lost nearly 240,000 residents, and New York lost over 120,000. Massachusetts alone watched over $4 billion in taxable income move to states with no income tax, like Texas and Florida. This mobile wealth is flowing directly into Zoom towns, rural, scenic communities now serving as permanent hubs for remote workers. You can see the extreme market impact in places like Bozeman, Montana. Between 2020 and 2024, an influx of out-of-state wealth pushed the average home price there to over $800,000. This hyper-localized wealth transfer has effectively turned quiet mountain and desert communities into high-tech hubs overnight, dropping them into environments completely unequipped to handle the sudden cash. Supporting a sudden influx of software engineers in a rural mountain valley requires looking beneath the surface of the map. High-speed fiber optic internet has become the new essential infrastructure, replacing the highway or the subway line for the modern remote worker. By 2026, over 84 million American homes had direct access to fibered internet. That high-speed connection is the exact mechanism making remote living viable almost anywhere on the map. Venture capital money is following these digital fiber lines. Instead of concentrating strictly in Silicon Valley or Manhattan, investment capital is pouring into the Midwest and the Southeast. High-speed fiber internet has finally replaced the centralized corporate skyscraper as the foundational bedrock of the modern economy. When a fragile rural community is suddenly flooded with high-earning remote elites, the local systems reach a breaking point. As housing costs explode, essential locals are priced out. Communities find themselves without enough teachers, nurses, or chefs to keep the town running, causing basic local services to shut down entirely. Back in the major cities these remote workers left behind, a different crisis has emerged: millions of square feet of empty commercial real estate. By 2025, the national office vacancy rate hit nearly 20%. In Los Angeles, that number reached 46%. Remote work hollowed out the fragile rural communities we escaped to, while simultaneously emptying the massive urban centers we left behind. This migration pattern is evolving once again as the priority shifts from aesthetic beauty toward physical safety. As climate risks grow, wealthy Americans are actively fleeing rising flood zones and fire-prone areas to establish what are now called climate havens. They are taking their laptops and moving towards stable environments, like the inland regions of Michigan or the elevated towns of Vermont. Selecting a home is now a calculated survival strategy, carrying far more weight than a minor career convenience. We traded centralized corporate density for distributed freedom. In the process, the Great Migration broke and rewrote the rules of the American economic map.